hey, you may have noticed we've had quite a lot of weather recently, perhaps more than our fair share. Thunderstorms, lightning, high winds, power cuts, all of that type of stuff. And this morning looks a little bit brighter, but is that the end? Is that the end of the terrible weather? What sort of weekend are we going to have? Well, Phil Duncan from WeatherWatch.co.nz joins us. Phil, kia ora, good morning.
Kia ora, hello. Good to be with you again.
It has been a bit blustery in the last 24 hours in particular. What was happening there, Phil?
Well, where I am, where we are in Auckland, the windy sou'wester that was blowing up the entire western coastline of New Zealand on Wednesday nails Auckland perfectly. It's like a nor'wester coming in for Dunedin or Christchurch or Wellington. When they get that big howling nor'wester, we get that in Auckland with a sou'wester. And so Auckland had rain and thunderstorms and hail. And then you wake up this morning and it was blue sky and calm. Windy again now, though, because we're not finished with the sou'wester just yet. That's going to cross right over the country over today and tonight and tomorrow. But it's being replaced by a really warm, you can see it on the screen behind me if you're watching it, a nor'wester coming out of Australia. And so that basically means very quickly we're switching away from this wintry event where we had hail and snow in the south to suddenly it's going to be warm this weekend. Places like Wanaka, 17 or 18 degrees. The far north could be 21 or 22. We only just had snow and hail in the last couple of days.
This is remarkable, and I must say, I was driving along Lincoln Road in West Auckland yesterday, which is out where you were, and it was like there were snow drifts on the side of the road with all the hail that had fallen as we were driving along. I mean, it is wintery because it's kind of winter. This is what we should expect at this time of the year. Although, honestly, it's not bad that we're the final days of May, and well, this is the last big storm in recent memory for a lot of folks.
It is, and I was just talking to a Southland radio station every Thursday morning before we talk. And he literally just said to me, "Where are the frosts? We're not getting frosts in Southland." And as tonight, the overnight low in Gore is about 13 degrees, or maybe tomorrow night, 13 degrees. It's 6 degrees if you're up in Whakatane or Kawerau and Bay of Plenty. So that's around the wrong way. And even he said at the end of the interview, gosh, it's such a messy, confusing forecast. And I mean, well, basically, that's what we're going into in June, a little more chaos. That doesn't mean it's stormier, but it just means you could have a southerly one day and a northerly the next. And it sums up what I've always thought about New Zealand, that we don't really have much of a summer or much of a winter. It's mostly spring and autumn for big, long stretches of time.
So that kind of autumnal vibe, that will be continuing on into June, because if you just go by the calendar, it's winter next week, although we may have had a foretaste of it this week. But continuing similar, chaotic, much of the same autumnal vibes as we head into the first part of June. What's it looking like?
Basically, yeah. We've got a big high pressure zone coming in for the long weekend. It's going to start off with this windy weather on Friday and Saturday for the South Island, and a cold front tries to come into the South Island, but it falls apart. After that, high pressure dominates. And so Sunday, Monday for the long weekend could be a bit colder with a southerly sort of blowing through, especially if you live in the eastern and southern parts of both of the main islands. The top of the country barely affected. It'd be nice and mild and dry. But next week, we've got this low pressure zone in the Tasman, and that could then encourage easterlies coming back in again. So it's going to be a bit of a strange week, I think, over the next week. It may not necessarily feel like winter for everybody. It may still feel like autumn. And some people would say, well, that's right, because winter doesn't really start until the 21st of June. The winter solstice depends on whether you go with the astronomical date, which is then, or the meteorological date, which is now, or the solar winter, which is the 3 months with the least amount of sunlight, which we're already in the middle of right now. So you can take your pick.
Yeah, choose one of those, although it is looking pretty good for the long weekend, King's birthday weekend, of course, coming up. I mean, take a jacket, certainly take a brolly, but the possibility of a picnic in the park, kicking around some autumn leaves, that sounds like a good way to spend a weekend.
That's right. Yeah, if the leaves haven't turned to mush already, because I went for a walk down my street the other day and there were leaves just everywhere. It was beautiful, big pile of maple leaves. They were all red and oranges, and And then it rained, and the next day it was just mush. There was
Yeah.
nothing there. It was all flat and squashed. So, with the wind we've just had, some of those leaves will be disappearing pretty quickly. But the weekend is looking actually pretty good. I mean, I think usually in most long weekends in New Zealand, there's one half is good and the other half isn't. This weekend, I actually think it's looking pretty good for the whole weekend, but I would imagine at least one day won't be so flash for most regions. There'll be a day where you've got the risk of a shower, or it's cloudy, or it's a little bit colder, or a bit windy. But there should be at least 2 days that are pretty good right across the country for the 3-day weekend.
Well, I am grateful that we got our thunderstorms and hailstorms out of the way on a Wednesday so that we can enjoy a little bit more outdoor space over the weekend. Of course, people can stay up to date at weatherwatch.co.nz for the latest in weather information. Phil, appreciate the work that you do. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much. Look forward to talking to you next time.
Hey, thanks very much for joining us in the Rhema studio. Thanks very much for watching the interview. It's kind of nice to have an audience, actually. And if you did like what you watched, then do give us a like, do give us the thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more interviews like that one, or perhaps even better, subscribe and those interviews will come straight to you. Don't forget to turn on your notifications, and we'll see you in the next one. Cheers.